We were very excited to see the Lucas ILM announcement about Darth Vader coming to VR. Right, that seems like a pretty good use of VR to tell that story.
I think the technical term is awesome.
Sure, yeah, stunning. I can't wait. Like, please, can you hurry up with that so we can all enjoy it? And then, by that token, also today, Lucas released Trials of Tatooine, which we've been waiting for on Vive. Which actually lets you wield a lightsaber and, chop up some bad guys with it. So that's really fun if anybody hasn't checked that out. And it's free, which is amazing. But I think their plan there is to just kind of give people a taste of what lightsabers in VR are going to be like. But realizing that down the line, as we have more time to develop things, it's going to be some really deep, rich content that'll let you, maybe go inside of Knights of the Old Republic, for instance. I'm not saying that that's happening. I'm just saying that could happen.
So as far as content goes for the Vive, or for VR in general, what in the gaming space and in interactive music and movie space, what are you seeing that's working? You guys are starting to get in the market. I know it's a little bit early, but if someone was going to say, hey, I'm making a VR game, what is the stuff that really seems to have attach rate where people, instead of seeing something for one time, like the Great Whale demo that everyone's like, wow, that was awesome. Do you want to do it again?
Right.
No.
Right.
Would you do it for $1? No.
Right.
What's the kind of stuff that actually people seem to want more than a novelty?
Sure. And I can just say it in one word: multiplayer. Right. So that's basically, people want to play with each other. So that's the problem with the whale, is like you kind of look at the whale and then that's it. They can't interact with the whale. You can't share that with someone else unless they're looking on your computer screen. So what's really taking off is, so there's two trends, having been in the games industry now for 6 console generations. The exciting thing is seeing when the new generation comes, when the content starts showing up in the top selling charts. And what happens is, first, one piece of content or one game shows up in the top 10 sales list, right? And then that shows, okay, the Xbox 360 is showing up. And then a few months down the line, 2 or 3 from that platform will show up. And then over time, the new platform just eclipses the old one. So that's already starting to happen on Steam and VR. So Pool Nation VR was the first VR-only title to crack the top 10 sales in Steam. And so that was a really nice benchmark that is okay, now at least you can get into the top 10 in terms of sales with your VR game, right? So, and the reason that I think that game is so compelling is because it is multiplayer. It has infinite replay value. It's not like you can just watch the whale and it goes by and that's cool. It's like, I can now play with this guy in Phoenix, and then as soon as I'm through with that, I can play with this guy in Texas, and then through with that, I can play this guy in Tokyo. So as long as you want to keep playing pool, you can keep playing pool. So that is definitely good value. And then in VR, that turns out to be probably the killer sort of feature. So multiplayer.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just
the
real
key
quick,
is multiplayer.
Well, right now, I think that's what people are really hungry for, is things that they can play with other folks and then just have infinite replay. And then just this last weekend, a company down in Santa Monica called Servios just released a really, really nice AAA co-op shooter. And that actually, it went straight to #1 in terms of sales on Steam. So it passed up No Man's Sky, it passed up Warhammer, and it was the first VR-only game to hit top sales #1 position in Steam. So that's also a kind of a high watermark for us. And it shows that people are really hungry for VR content. And I bet you for everybody that has a Vive, probably at least 50 to 60% of them will buy a really great game if you put it out, today. So that means your attach rate can be very high as long as you make a compelling piece of content.
I'm just a little flabbergasted right now. I'm kind of taken back. So what about story-based single-player games on VR?
Yeah, no, those are good too. And then there's a place for those, right? But that's probably a percentage of the market that is interested in that. Okay. And again, it's probably something where you're going to play through the adventure, play through the story, and then you're going to probably want to show your friends. But it's a lot harder to show off a single-player game, I would say, than obviously a multiplayer game.
That's true.
Yeah.
How many people in here are looking for funding to develop on VR? Okay. So there's a group of you?
Couple.
So you guys have a gajillion-dollar fund. I've read 10. Is it 10 billion?
Okay.
You have a fund right now that you're investing in VR. It's kind of vague press releases. How much is it, and how do we get it?
Got it. Okay, let's go straight to the point. So
I like to be very direct with my questions.
Yeah, why not? Since we're all friends, that's good. So we actually at HTC, we're really getting aggressive in VR. We really want VR to take off, and we think that's not only good for us, but it's good for the computing and software industry as a whole. So we're engaging on several different initiatives with external companies. So the first is on just a piece of content, right? That could be a game, it could be a movie, it could be education, healthcare, any area of content. And then we are actually partnering with folks in what we call second-party production. And then we can work with those teams to either co-fund that production, we can fully fund it, or there's a wide variety of ways we can partner with folks on an individual piece of content. So that's one way we're working with folks.
Could you expand on what first party, second party, and third party mean?
Sure. So first party is internal studios. That's studios that we own 100%. Same thing as Xbox or PlayStation, right? That's their internal teams. Like for Microsoft, it's Bungie. And Sony has too many to count. So we are also working on internal content at our internal teams. So that's first party. Second party is external companies that we don't own or control, but that have great ideas for creating VR content. And then that's probably the best way for us to partner with external teams. This is what we call second party. And then we can either operate as the funding portion of a project, and then the developer themselves handles all the programming, art, engineering, design, and then we partner with them on the publishing side as well, for sure on our platform, and then we can also help them take it to other platforms. So that's where I think HTC is being a little bit unique in the ecosphere, is that we're not demanding that people are exclusive to our platform. We actually are encouraging people to put their content on as wide of a platform reach as possible, because that's better for them and that's better for the VR ecosphere. So that's the second party teams, and we're doing a lot of investment in content that we think is great for VR in that second party. And then third party is the final range, and that's basically companies that are creating content, and their job or their sort of strategy is to put it on as many platforms as possible. And so they don't need necessarily investment or funding from us, but more just support in terms of development kits and marketing support and so forth, but not necessarily a contract or a funding deal that comes on top of that.
And how much is your fund?
Well, so yeah, we have a couple funds to talk about. So one is ViveX, which is an accelerator fund. It's $100 million, and right now that is got 3 locations. It's a classic accelerator, so it's not a startup company. It's a company that's already going. It's probably got a team. It's been in operation maybe a year, and it's really close to launching a product. And then what that company or team is looking for is just a little bit of rocket fuel to help them get to that product launch and then take off as a company. So that's the accelerator model, and that's what we've decided to go after, as opposed to the incubator, which is 4 guys in a PowerPoint deck. So we want to just go up market a bit from that and focus on the teams that have found a way to get their product to a prototype probably, or a demo that we can actually see and try out. And then from that point, we put them into our accelerator program, and we're very, very open to working with people across not just content, but it's anything to do with VR, right? So that's a peripheral. Maybe you've invented a propeller hat that as you walk, it helps your character fly. I mean, we're seeing some crazy stuff. That's
kind of awesome.
I know, right? And then, of course, the things that you walk, you just organically walk on a little pad, and then your character walks. So there's people that are working on great solutions for all kinds of things, both from the hardware, the platform side, and then for sure content. So our accelerator program is designed to really help the whole ecosphere of VR. And we are very excited to launch that in Taiwan Beijing and San Francisco are our actual 3 first locations that we've launched the Accelerator, and we're about ready to welcome our first class into the San Francisco location, which is actually at our office right down here in the Mission.
So they have to come in.
Yeah, well, not the full team, because as we know, a lot of people are sort of what do you call it, co-located. People are in LA, some people are in Seattle. But we want them to be able to come in and physically have at least part of their team there, right? So maybe even 2 guys come in. That's going to work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the other?
Okay, and then so the Virtual Reality Venture Capital Alliance, which is a bit of a tongue twister.
Virtual Reality Capital.
Venture Capital Alliance.
Venture Capital Alliance.
Yeah. VRVCA. So that is what we've done there is we've brought all of the venture capital funds that are focused on virtual reality together under one umbrella, and that total amount of deployable capital behind that fund is the $10 billion, and that's including our fund. That includes our partners like Colapol, Gumi, like all of the larger investments and VC funds that have been announced for VR. We all decided that it was good to be in one organization, and so HTC put that together over the last about 3 months, and then we were able to just announce that about 3 weeks ago.
So if someone in this room wants to get to that money, who do they contact? Do they contact? Where is the entry point?
Got it. Yeah.
Once again, I'd like to ask very direct questions.
Yeah, so that's, if you know somebody at HTC, like you can certainly use them as a conduit.
Like you?
For instance.
Okay.
If you happen to have my contact information, you could contact me. If you have anybody on my team's contact. So like essentially we're all going to be a conduit into the organization, and then we'll be able to distribute out to teams. We're going to actually be like, I think it's every 2 months for the Virtual Reality Capital Alliance. There will be a pitch session every 2 months that people can come and, again, pitch your platform.
So if they know anyone at any one of those companies in the alliance, each one's a gateway.
That's right.
And then you guys come together as partners and vote every 2 months?
That's right. Okay. And then it's kind of like, I kind of liken it to kind of like a virtual reality Shark Tank, because it is going to be like you come up and pitch, and then there's like a panel of the investors. And, essentially, any one of those funds can back your idea. 2 of them might find, both 2 people might like it, and they go in on it. But you'll basically be pitching to a panel of between 6 and 10. Is it
just like Shark Tank? It's like, will you give me 40%?
It's like I feel like it's going to become like that. It's set up that way. Yeah.
That would be actually cool.
I know. I can't. I hope I get to go and be on that panel.
Can I have the VR broadcast rights to that? Okay, does anyone in the audience, we've got 5 minutes left, does anyone in the audience have any questions at all?
Brian Roth with Immersive. I'm curious if you guys have been public about your acceptance or rejection rate of content or applications on the platform?
No, we have not. I mean, acceptance or, that's a good question.
Does everyone understand? To define the question, you're just not guaranteed to get approval to develop on the platform.
Right. There is an approval process.
There's a process. So he's asking for the parameters. So if you apply and you get rejected, it's kind of a good idea to know why. So
So that's
good question.
Right. Yeah. So I personally am not in the selection process. I'm personally going to be involved more in the mentoring stage, so like to help people understand what's going to be great for VR. So I do know that we received thousands of applications, and certainly there's not thousands of slots open. But I do know that we have a really, really experienced team across all the field of hardware, platforms, and content. And through that internal lens of the professionals that we have on our team, we were absolutely able to sift through those applications and find some really, really great potential. Because again, that's all we're looking for is potential, because it's not a final thing there yet, right? You can't look at it and be like, oh, that's awesome, but it's more like that team plus that idea equals awesome, and then that's what we're looking for.
Would you say that there's one common mistake that people tend to make when they're building VR content that you would advise against?
That's a good question. Common mistake. I mean, I guess one thing that you see a lot is people just trying to quickly take a sort of a desktop application and put it into VR. I'm not saying that that's what everybody's doing, but I've seen that kind of mistake a lot. And then if you haven't kind of put thought behind why this even needs to be in VR versus like how, I can just quickly do that into VR, I think that's probably worth thinking through a lot more of like, why is this going to be awesome in VR just because we can, should we, those kind of things. So yeah, I've seen that a lot. I wouldn't say it's 100%, right? It's probably actually more like 25 or 30%.
That's interesting. I've said the same thing. People are like, look, I got this in VR. I'm like, why?
Yeah. Is that, who needs that?
Yeah,
and then just go back to like, who's the audience for this, right? That's always what I like to start with. Like, is there an audience potentially for this? Well, actually, no. then you should maybe do something else with your time.
Yeah. Just because you have 3D assets, it does not mean it's a good idea.
That's right. Just because you got models. And then I think the other thing that's pretty common that I've seen and that is just painful for me, personally, to go and experience a lot, is people don't understand that you really have to have 90 frames a second to have really good VR. And so they're like, it's up
90?
and running. Yeah, 90 frames a second in each eye.
We operate in each eye, so
in each
180.
eye. Well, no, it's still 90 frames a second, but essentially it's still refreshing at 90 frames a second. But because it doesn't
Just
double.
so you know, we found it's best at 120. No, all joking aside, if it's an action game and you start to drop below 120, the throw-up rate spikes.
If you go below 120?
Below 120. That's what we're seeing on our shooter.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I mean, definitely higher is better. 30 is not good. 30 is not going to work. 45 is not going to work. A variable frame rate is not going to work, right? So a locked-in 90 we found is very comfortable for most content. And then, what we try to encourage people to do is start your project at 90 and keep it there at 90. Don't let it go down, because traditional game development is like, don't worry, we'll get the frame rate up at the end. Let's get the content in. But since it's so critical to success and comfort in VR, we just encourage developers to actually start at 90 and never go down.
Well, you can't test.
Yeah, you're going to make everybody sick.
The problem is, that's the one thing he says, is, once again, we went through this, we'll optimize it later. It's like, we can't, because no one can play the game in the meantime because they're all throwing up.
Yeah, that's no good, right? So sometimes I've gone to trade shows where there's demo after demo after demo after demo, and most of them, you put it on and you're like, oh God, that's no good. What's your frame rate, guys? And then they're like, I think we're up at 40. I'm like, okay, call me back. Call me back later.
Thanks. What game are you waiting for in VR? What's your ultimate VR experience you're waiting to see?
Sure. Yeah, Pokemon Go would be good. We'll just put that in a little visor, put it in a helmet. No, well, I mean, I'm super excited for Fallout. There is no game that's got 200 plus hours of content yet in VR, and so that one will.
It's going to be 200 hours.
Well,
you're bringing it.
It's 120 plus all the add-on packs. I mean,
you're bringing the whole thing.
The whole game. The whole game is coming to VR, and then I don't think anybody will be able to produce 200 hours of VR content in the time that it's going to take Bethesda to, convert Fallout to VR and to Vive. So next summer, the full Fallout will be available in Vive, and I think that will be phenomenal. I think it's going to blow people away, and I really hope it becomes the killer app that shows, what the potential for VR gaming really is.
I will now begin negotiating with my children on whose bedroom we give up, because this will allow us to do that. Because one of them's going to have to.
Somebody's going to have to go.
Someone's going to have to double up.
Yeah.
Are you developing anything for the phone or the handset or stuff outside of the the VR hardware as well? Some of the content that you're producing or services for it, or is your group specifically just focused on this hardware you're describing?
On the I just want to clarify.
For the HTC phones, for example.
For the HTC phones. Yeah. So we have a really nice integration with the HTC phone inside of the Vive. So you can basically you can interact with your phone with voice and messaging inside of it. So we've integrated our latest phone into the headset. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I think down the line, for sure, what we'd like to see is more of that sort of a cross-play. Right now, we've just kind of integrated, okay, take a call, get some messages, tell them I'm too busy playing Fallout, I can't get back to you right now. But down the line, the connection's already there. So if some developers get really creative with like what would be able to go on the go, and then what's fun to do in the desktop and in the headset, it's actually available now. But like, I'm not currently producing any content like that, but I'd be open to that.
And I think that's all of our time. That's it. All right.
Okay, thank you.